Welcome, everyone. My name is Eric Giordano. I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, also known as WIPPS.
And I'm Dave Anderson, a Senior Policy Fellow here at WIPPS. Eric, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about the organization?
Right. Well, we were founded in 2007, and we are a unit of the University of Wisconsin system, with the mission to educate and engage citizens, develop future leaders, and help communities address issues that they care about. By the way, Dave, just want to wish you a happy Juneteenth to you and all of our friends and viewers. And I think it's appropriate at this time, Dave, to remind everyone that we've gone 2 straight weeks without any bald puns or jokes. And I suspect that this has been very tough for the collective psyche of our viewers. And so I really think it's time to clear the hair. See what I did there? Now, some of you might say, your humor is childish, it's silly, my spouse for one. But we believe that we need to celebrate the beauty and wisdom that has been bestowed upon us.
I couldn't agree with you more, Eric. So let's baldly go where no man has gone before.
Right? Let the clips fall where they may. Speaking of which, I'm looking forward to our hair-raising story of the week. We're going to now turn it over to Luke.
Yeah, me too. And I do want to introduce Luke Rudolph, who is our producer extraordinaire, does a wonderful job for us on the show. And he's also, of course, our token representative of that attractive younger demographic that we try to attract to watch this particular show. What did you dig up for us this week, Luke?
All right, guys. Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest will go on without spectators. Nathan's Famous and Major League Eating announced Tuesday that the contest will take place amid the coronavirus pandemic at a private location without any spectators. The competition will only have 5 participants instead of the traditional 15. Workers will also wear masks and gloves during the event, and the competitors will have to be tested for coronavirus. Nothing is untouched by COVID-19, I suppose.
I missed that story, Luke, so I'm glad you came across that. I've been wondering what's going to happen with this particular contest. I mean, I've been following what's going on with baseball and basketball and football, and this has been top of mind for me, so I really appreciate the clarification. Hey, if you could do a little bit of research and find out what they're going to be doing at Sheboygan Brat Days, I'd appreciate that too. They have a big brat eating contest there every summer. Eric?
Why? I just want to understand why. Why are they doing this? And then Luke, you had mentioned earlier to us that they had cut down the number of participants from 15 to 5, and I just had to ask myself, how did they choose those 5? I mean, what did they do to deserve this special honor? But in any case, wonderful, wonderful story. The human spirit is incredible. Well, we're really looking forward to our guest today, Dave. We're going to be talking about the economic outlook and the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses. One challenge, Dave, that we've covered in this show, doing it weekly, is that there's just so many great topics, so many interesting things to cover. It's tough to focus on one each week, but we really want to thank our viewers who've already made some great suggestions. So look for some upcoming topics, for example, on the future of the creative economy. What's education and higher education going to look like in the post-COVID environment? The question of Confederate monuments is a really interesting topic that we might cover. If you have a topic or idea, dear audience, that you'd like us to share or discuss, or you just want to match wits with us by sharing your favorite bald joke or pun, please contact us at info@wipps.org. That's info@wipps.org. So without further ado, Dave, let's introduce this week's guests.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to make those introductions. First of all, it's our pleasure to introduce Dr. Maysee Herr, Executive Director of the Hmong, Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce with headquarters in Milwaukee and a satellite office in Wausau. Dr. Herr took on her Executive Director responsibilities about 7 months ago. Welcome, Macy.
Thank you, Eric and Dave. Thanks for having me.
And next, we'd like to welcome Eric Ness. Eric is the Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration Wisconsin District with locations in Madison and Milwaukee. As District Director, Eric is responsible for the delivery of SBA programs throughout Wisconsin, and he served in this role since 2001. on a personal note, I have to say that I've known Eric for over 30 years. So we go back a long time. I actually had hair when our cross first passed oh so many years ago.
I don't believe it.
Hey, it's great to be here with you guys.
So first, I think our viewers might be interested to hear a little bit about what each of your organizations do. Let's start with you, Dr. Herr, and then we'll move on to Eric. And Eric, just to get you thinking about it, maybe you could also share a little bit about what really is a small business. How do we define small businesses? So think about that while Dr. Herr gives her little review.
Thank you, Dave. So I've been in my position for about 7 months now, and I have, with COVID and everything that's going on with the protests, I've really tried to boldly take on my role. Did you get that? So
that's a thumbs up.
Take on my new role, and nothing like learning the job the way that I have. So but it's been wonderful. So I would say the two main things that first of all, our mission is to really start off by helping Hmong and Southeast Asian small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs to learn what it means to start a business in that process. Now we serve not only the Asian community as a whole, but in Wisconsin, but we also serve, historically disadvantaged and underserved communities. I would say two main things that we do is we provide economic resources, economic development resources, but we also have a revolving loan fund available to those who might be interested in taking out a loan to start their business.
Great. Eric, a little bit about the SBA.
Well, as Dave said, I've been here for a few years, but what SBA does is we help businesses start, grow, and right now playing a big role in recover. And basically, it's a wonderful job to help folks with all these great dreams and people that are in businesses and now with the challenges to try to keep them in business. We do that through we offer loans, so capital access. We do that through our contracting area. We have our 8A program, which is for socially and economically disadvantaged. We have a woman certification program, a hub zone program, and a service disabled veteran program. And then we also have wonderful partners like the small business development centers at the UW campuses. We have our SCORE volunteers who volunteer to help small businesses. And then we have our Women's Business Center. We have Western Dairyland up in Eau Claire and Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation and Appleton, Milwaukee, Kenosha, Racine, and Madison, and work across the state with their microloan programs. And we have something called the Veteran Business Outreach Center. So those are things that we do to try to help small businesses start, grow, and recover. And I think you talked about what is a small business, and that is a great question. And you would think it's very easy, but there's a little nuances to it. So one of the ways we kind of define what a small business is looking at something called the North American Industry Classification System, which basically looks at different industries and sees what kind of, how large or what is a small business in that industry. And we take a look at that every few years. We're kind of reviewing that. Just kind of give you an example, like for a sawmill, it's 500 employees. That under 500 and under, that would be a small business. For a bookstore, it's under 30 million in sales. And of course, one of the things that I think Dave and Eric, you really would focus on is our barber shop, our haircutting area. And of course, to be a small business, you have to have $8 million of sales or less. We also have an alternative size standard, which is a $15 million net worth, average of $5 million net income for the last 2 years. If you're under that, you're okay. And then we have something called this Payroll Protection program, which came out. And basically, that was a size standard in itself. We used our NAICS code, but to try to make it easier for small businesses, we said if you're 500 employees or less, you are a small business for that program.
Well, I think at very least you deserve a thumbs up for that reference.
Very good, very good. You mentioned the PPP program, which is really a product of of this COVID-19 environment that we're in these days. And COVID-19, of course, has really had a profound impact on small business across the country. What are some trends and impacts that you've seen right here in Wisconsin? I'll ask this to both of you. And how are Wisconsin small businesses doing now compared to when the shutdown of the economy started back in March? Macy, would you like to tackle that first?
Well, that's a big question, Dave. But I'll say, I can think of some businesses that we work with. They were a lot of the businesses I work with are some of the most vulnerable. And so, everything that they had, they put into, in terms of, any source of funds that they had, they put into their businesses. And we're very hopeful. I can think of one in particular in Eau Claire where it was very promising, and I still believe it's a promising business. They had just started the business, hoping for it to take off, getting some good traction, and then COVID hit. And then, so then there were gaps in the amount of funding that they could actually receive because they were a new business. They started only, the last part of last year, and yet they were booming. They were starting to boom, but then they're left with, like I said, a gap of places they can look for funds. So they're just one example. I can think of other businesses where they thought that the COVID was probably a hoax, and so weren't sure if they really needed to worry about funding. And then of course, once everybody started applying for example, SBA loans or the PPP, then they came afterwards and said, is there any funding? And because of language barriers, for example, they might I had to tell them, you know what, the money's gone. That first round, it was just gone. So those are some of the experiences I've seen over and over again, at least where I'm at.
And Eric, what are you seeing from your perspective?
When Macy says the money was gone, it was a really fast rollout. I think we came out with the CARES Act on March 27th. We rolled out a whole new loan program on April 3rd. And as you probably remember or see, some of the rules were being written as we were rolling out the program, but we did need to get the money out as quickly as possible. And actually, in the first, I think, 14 days of rolling out the program, we actually did more loans than in the last 14 years at the SBA. So wow. Yes, we were all hands on deck taking calls. I know lenders were doing loans 24/7. They were trying to get the loan applications in, and that money went in and out. But fortunately, we had a second round on April 27th. What we're seeing in Wisconsin is we've helped actually over 81,000 small businesses in the state for $9.7 billion with the Payroll Protection Program. And of course, that program went to pay, the main point of it was to pay payroll. And initially it started at 75%. Now, as of last week, they rolled it back down to 60%, but that money went in to pay payroll. Interesting enough, after the Safer at Home had lifted and I went in to get a haircut, I was getting my haircut, and the barber asked where I was working, and I said the Small Business Administration. And typically, people didn't really know what we did. And he said, "Is that the Payroll Protection Program?" So I was a little bit concerned with going through the process, but anyway, it worked out for them. They were able to bring back their hairstylist and pay them during that time, and now they have gotten up and they're starting operation. Clearly we're not where we used to be. We're doing fewer people are coming in and doing some distancing, but we're seeing some hope there, and it's great to be able to go get your haircut. So
I've had a lot of experiences with barbers over the years, and a lot of experience, and I really think they're among the best informed people that you can encounter. They know absolutely everything about everything. So.
Wow, that's really laying it on thick, guys, but excellent. So, Maysee, I'm kind of curious. You mentioned the language barriers that some of the minority-owned businesses have encountered. Are there any other unique challenges for Wisconsin's minority-owned businesses that you're seeing in this challenging COVID era?
And I'm not sure that this is unique just to the population we tend to serve, but of course, all of us wanted to help in any way we can. And so we were throwing things at them left and right, loans and grants. I mean, just even, the difference between a loan and a grant was confusing, I think, for many folks. And then you start, throwing things at them, hoping it's helpful, and sending them to different directions, and to SBA, WEDC, WDA, to us, to other chambers. And I think it became a little overwhelming. So, unless you live with this stuff every day, I think even the average person had a very difficult time. And so then you throw, for example, perhaps those who don't have as much education and know how to, read through some of this information. The financial, some of the businesses we work with don't have accountants. They keep their own, it's not even a laughing matter. We have actually seen profit and loss sheets on written paper just so that they can get some funding. And that was with us walking them through, what they needed in order to make that happen. So, we've seen that sort of thing. The disparities, I think, between those who know where to look and those who don't, those who have partnerships with businesses and financial institutions, that became very evident.
Thank you.
Eric, you've talked about the volume of resources that have come to small businesses through a variety of programs. You've talked a little bit about how broadly they've been used here in the state of Wisconsin. Do you see any more resources coming down the pike? Is Congress looking at some additional funding or some additional programs to help as businesses continue to open up and get back on their feet?
They are, but I want to really kind of focus on what we have right now that is available. And of course, we talked about payroll protection. We heard that changed, and basically it was an 8-week to disperse the money. That Congress has actually increased that to 24 weeks. It was a 75% of the money had to go to payroll. Now it's 60% of the money has to go to payroll. This is for the forgiveness portion, and we've increased the terms from 2 years to 5 years, and also given out some safe harbors. What's really important about the payroll protection program is, number one, it's available right now. We still probably have about $130 million available, or $130 billion available for small businesses. They can access it by going through their bank, their credit union, their CDFIs. We're working with a lot of CDFIs like Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation who are doing them. And we also have the old Legacy Development, and we have the American Indian Chamber and Milwaukee Economic Development Corporation. But we've also added some fintechs, which is interesting because a lot of small businesses are using Intuit or PayPal or Square or OnDeck or Bluevine. And so you can actually get a PPP loan through them. So that's just that program, and that's available till June 30th. Another thing that happened just this week, actually on June 15th, is something called our Economic Injury Disaster Loan was basically opened up. Now the PPP program is great for payroll, great for mortgage interest, utilities and rents, but the EIDL program is actually a long-term loan program that can be used for working capital. And as we know, small businesses are going to need to have that working capital to get going and get started. And basically there's two components to it. One is an EIDL advanced, and basically that's a grant program for basically up to $10,000 depending on your employee. So like $1,000 per employee. And the other one is the IDL program, which can be a term up to 30 years for that long-term working capital to help get your businesses started. And lastly, I kind of wanted to mention our regular programs, which is our SBA 7A, our 504, and our microloan programs. Basically, we can do loans from $500 up to $5.5 million. And the great thing about that program is, number one, if you had an SBA 7A or 504 or microloan, we are making your loan payments for the next 6 months. And if you want a new loan in either the micro 7A or 504, if we can, you can get in and get that loan approved before September 27th. We're also going to make your loan payments for the next 6 months. So that's nothing we've done before. And what we're seeing is there's some small businesses who have that SBA 7A or 504, an EIDL and a PPP. They're making use of all the different programs to keep that business afloat, because we know it's challenging times, but you know, being able to use all of those products have really helped some small businesses.
So oh yeah, Maysee, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Can I just add to that? I know, the SBA has provided many resources in terms of funding. And I know as a chamber, I know that the clients that we tend to work with, not all of them qualify, for example, for the EIDL. So I know at least at our chamber, we moved with a sense of urgency. We do have some emergency loan funds available. We've had them for some time now, ever since, the stay-at-home order was in effect. So we still have those dollars available also. Like Eric had mentioned over SBA, we've done more loans this year than we ever have in the history of our chamber. And, this right now we're almost at the half, well, we've almost doubled the amount that was made last year altogether in terms of putting out, should I say, deploying loans. So it's been quite busy, but certainly we also have funds available, and more than happy to help those who might need that additional help.
Thanks. Looks like we have a question from an audience member. Luke, you want to go ahead and read that to us?
John would like to know if there's any data on the number of small businesses going out of business and bankruptcies with this COVID-19 pandemic.
Anyone have any thoughts about that?
I do not at this point. Of course, our job is to try to keep the people, keep businesses in business. So we're kind of really focused on that. But yeah, we haven't seen that data at this point.
I can tell you that there's a lot of research, a lot of studies out there right now from more than one organization trying to gather that very data from, anywhere from WIDA with an H, from the Housing Economic Development Authority, their office. I know our Ethic Diverse Business Coalition is collecting data from our minority-owned businesses right now, trying to gather a sense of those numbers. So those numbers are still coming in.
Yeah, I'm curious, Maysee, anecdotally, are you getting the impression that that some of your clients are going out of business? I mean, are you seeing some of this firsthand?
We are. And, the truth is I hear different views about, where the funds should be targeted, for example, more specifically, the grants that are available around the state. And of course, there are different perspectives. They should go towards, certain, the larger businesses that have a greater potential to succeed. That's a popular view. But of course, at a place like the Hmong Chamber, I'd like to think we can't afford to be thinking that way. And in my role anyway, we have to believe that, put the dollars out there and help people to try to keep their dreams alive of keeping their businesses in place, no matter how small they are.
I think it's important to note too that the state of Wisconsin has kind of stepped up to the plate as well through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and has some tools that are also available. We've talked a lot about some of the federal resources and some of the support that various support organizations like the Hmong Chamber provides, but the state too has some programs that I think small businesses should take a look at to help fill those gaps. So
Absolutely.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the reopening of the economy. And I know you've been more focused on probably direct services to your members or to those that you work with in the case of the SBA. But where do you think we are across the state of Wisconsin as small businesses in particular open their doors? How do you think that process is going? And do you foresee any setbacks as we continue down this path? And Macy, maybe we'll start with you on that one as well.
So setbacks in terms of Sorry, Dave.
Oh, where we're at in terms of reopening the state.
Yeah, in the COVID environment, right?
Right.
You know, it's interesting, I think, and maybe Eric can, I'm not sure how Eric feels about this, but what I'm seeing is because, you know, the different areas of the state have the ability to create their own ordinances. You know, that's hard to say right now. I know that at least in Marathon County, there's been, you know, some controversy in terms of how do we begin to open, you know, what are we okay with, what are businesses okay with. And so, you know, I think that has yet to be seen. I think we still need to open cautiously, you know, and you know, it just goes outside of ourselves too. We have to protect those around us as well as ourselves. And so I have the sense that, you know, it's being well thought out by, you know, the different, for example, health departments that have to be in charge of, you know, helping to put these ordinances together. And I trust that, you know, we're gonna, as a state, gonna watch very closely how we can do this in a way where the COVID-19 doesn't spread worse.
But small businesses are really in and redoing their business plans. And what we saw, and I've talked to a number of business, they were putting out a certain product, and now with the new realities of what's happening, they're changing their product line. I know some of the folks are using the PPP just to do that, where they're bringing in their staff. Maybe they couldn't open up, but they were saying, hey, let's retool. And I know I talked to a business last night who was making some plastic liners, and now they've turned it over to having dividers for offices, for safe offices to come in and have some of the PPE masks and things that they are now selling. So it's interesting to talk to businesses and watch them pivot. What we're trying to do at the SBA, and we put a lot of money into our small business development centers, our women's business centers like WIPPS and Western Dairyland and SCORE, they're available to kind of work with and run through ideas and kind of do some consulting, because I think really technical assistance is really key here. We're all kind of in unprecedented areas, and talking with the chamber just to kind of get a feedback of, you know, how does this work, or can I try this? People's business plans are being rewritten. So that's kind of what we're seeing, and kind of how we're seeing the small businesses kind of pivot in this time.
You know, I'm always amazed at how quickly our time flies when we have a great conversation like this. And I think we're getting to that point where we need to think about a final question. And Luke, I think we have one more viewer question. So Eric Giordano, if it's okay with you, maybe we'll turn it over to Luke to get that question, and we'll have that as our final question today. Luke, what do you have?
This is from Dennis. Will the pandemic and many grants issued many grants issued, is it more difficult for new entrepreneurs to get an SBA loan, more specifically SBA Express loans?
Great question. And actually, our Express program was a program that ran up to $350,000. We, because of the pandemic, we've actually increased that to $1 million, and we're paying the upfront fees for veterans permanently on that. So basically, what we're seeing in some of our lending is there are SBA loans being done. I can tell you under the 504 program, we're actually 20% higher this year than we were last year. So we are seeing businesses starting to get financing and increasing that Express level from 350 to $1 million, we believe is going to help small businesses, especially in needing of that working capital.
Wow, that really appreciate that. Any last thoughts either of you have before we sign off here that you'd like to share?
Just that we're gonna at least hit the Hmong chamber, and I'm sure the same is true over SBA. We're just gonna continue riding the wave and doing all that we can to help these small businesses survive. You know, whether it's products to our own office or helping to promote others that are out there. And we're here to help anyone who needs it.
And of course, at SBA, we have sba.gov/WI. You can get right on our website. We have a number of programs that are available right now. Utilize them. If you're needing to talk with somebody, you know, talk with the chamber, talk with our partners, and you can run by some scenarios. So we're here to help.
Well, thank you both, Maysee and Eric, so much. You know, we, Dave and I and Luke, certainly recognize the importance of small businesses for our economy, and we really hope our viewers also recognize this. And we all hope for a swift end to the pandemic and an even swifter return to prosperity for small businesses owners and their employees. So speaking of which, I think this might be an appropriate time for a shameless plug. Here at WIPPS, we have developed a free return to work survey tool for businesses both small and large, and it is available in an online format and can also be tweaked to order and ask some pretty in-depth questions about things like, you know, how well your company or organization has handled the shift to working at home, how employees have felt about working from home, what's worked well, what could do better, what's the level of concern about employees returning to work. So if you're interested, please contact us at info@wipps.org. So Dave, what have we got on tap for next week?
Well, next week, we're going to be discussing criminal justice reform with Milwaukee County Sheriff Ernell Lucas and a prominent Milwaukee defense attorney, John Birdsall. So I would encourage our viewers to please join us at noon next Friday for another stimulating conversation. And Eric, I have to mention too that I got a call from both of my daughters this morning wishing me the best on this Father's Day weekend, which I really appreciated. You know, when I told them I was busy preparing for today's show, my older daughter said that I should tell our viewers that I am so bald that people can actually see what's on my mind. Not to be outdone, my younger daughter said I should tell everyone I'm so bald that people actually use, that I actually use more toothpaste than shampoo. So there you go. So with that, I would like to say happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Yeah, facts are facts, right? Thanks, Dave, and our apologies to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson once again for running out of time. We hope we can get you on next week. Until then, Dave, I don't care really what anyone else says. You really are razor sharp, and I'm really glad that we're joined at the clip. So we'll see you all next week.
Great.